Welcome. Megacorp is a trading card game in which you, the player, assume the role of a business owner in the 90th century. The objective of the game is to come out on top. You must not hesitate to take risks that could improve your assets, or to reach across the way and take success from the ill-fitted hands of the competition. You must innovate, spreading your influence far and wide. And, above all else, you must crush your opponents. Sabotage their business so that you may triumph, or else fade into the obscurity of an ever-changing corporate landscape of corruption, money, and power. There are 3 decks used in Megacorp, each denoted by a different color and symbol at the back of the card. Resource deck. The resource deck contains a minimum of 20 cards to be considered playable. You can have multiple copies of the same card in your resource deck. Resource cards are denoted by green coloration. Main deck. The main deck contains a minimum of 40 cards. You can have up to 4 copies of a given card in the main deck, but no more. Main deck cards are denoted by blue coloration. Business and Founder. The Business and Founder are cards you begin a game with. Each founder is affiliated to one of the 3 factions, Corp, Nost, and Incarnate. Business and Founder cards are denoted by red coloration. There are 4 main types of cards in Megacorp: characters, events, equipments, and locations. Characters represent your business in different ways, as consumers who provide you with cash flow, your primary assets to declare challenges to your opponent, or even support your other assets through abilities. Events range from business operations to disasters that will affect the different corporations and players. They can be deployed anytime and be used to either assist an asset or disrupt an opponent. Equipment cards are various tools or genetic modifications that can be attached to your characters. They provide additional benefits to a character, or may even be used to damage an opponent's assets. Location cards provide an assortment of bonuses to your business. It comes either as cash flow or bonus traits that can be used to pay for your expenditures on other assets. Megacorp has 2 primary resources: money and traits. First, money is used to pay for events and deploy characters. It is expressed in terms of credits, with 10 million credits being the maximum you can have at the beginning of the game. Second, traits are secondary resource, used to pay for costs and also used when 2 cards perform combat. There are 4 types of traits: IQ, Intelligence Quotient; EQ, Emotional Quotient; MQ, Moral Quotient; BQ, Body Quotient. Through a game of Megacorp, cards will go to different zones: Main Deck Zone, Resource Deck Zone, Network, your main play area, Hand, where you start with 5 cards in every game. The open market is where cards go after they are discarded. Each player has their own open market pile. Both players can buy the topmost card of any open market pile. This zone is public and can be checked by both players. Annihilated Zone. This zone is for cards that are either annihilated or removed from the game via an effect. Cards in the Annihilated Zone cannot come back or be bought. This zone is public and can be checked by both players. To begin a game, both players must shuffle their respective decks and present them to their opponent. Both players will then draw 5 cards. In case either player decides to mulligan, the player must shuffle back the cards in his hand and draw 1 card less. Deciding on who goes first will be determined through a bid. Both players either use a dice or any form to secretly give a number. In this case, using calculators on mobile phones to present their numbers. Assuming my opponent declared 1 and I declared 2, the highest bidder, being myself, will be the winner. As the highest bidder, I will be the one to start the game and will subtract the amount I bid times 1 million from the initial fund, which is always 10 million credits. In this case, the winner starts the game at 8 million credits. Next, each player puts his or her business onto the network, with their founders docked to the businesses. During accounting phase, my opponent and I will receive cash flow from disengaged cards. Upkeep costs are then paid. These costs are optional and a player must opt not to pay upkeep. In case I decide not to pay upkeep on a card, that card will be sent to my open market. Turn player reveals the top card of the resource deck. Since I was the player to go first, and it is the first turn of the game, I cannot draw now. Trait pools are then emptied. During the buy phase, players are able to buy cards from their own hands, open markets, and resource decks. For example, assume my opponent purchases one card from the resource deck. To gain cash flow, she places it above her founder card. The paid valuation cost for this is 4 million credits, which is printed on the upper left of the card. Then, using a calculator, subtract 4 million credits. My opponent will then decide to play a card from her hand. Let's use Corp Citizen. I will lose another 2 million. If she would like to play another card, for example, Horizon Riot Control Squad, I can choose to engage a card, like my business card, to produce a trait equal to its value. For this MQ, I have to produce 10 MQ. After that, we proceed to challenge phase. During challenge phase, characters can either declare or forfeit a combat to an opposing zone or in any of the other players' network. Now, I am going to initiate a challenge, selecting Heracles Senior Council as my attacker. I will engage it and decide a zone in my opponent's network. I have chosen Selfish Consumer as my target. To be able to attack Selfish Consumer, I must declare a specific trait as the attack value. The opposing card in that zone must have the same trait for the combat to proceed. So, using Heracles Senior Council for MQ, I will attack Selfish Consumer's MQ. Now my opponent can select a card adjacent to the card being attacked as a blocker. The problem here is that the Glassman card is currently engaged. Any card that is engaged cannot be declared as a blocker. At the same time, engaged cards cannot deal damage. So, using a valid blocker like Corp Advisor, which has MQ, we can proceed to the next combat step. Damage is done by looking at the number of the trait used to declare combat. If any character receives equal or more damage than its trait score, it is immediately destroyed and goes to the open market. So, Corp Advisor goes to the open market. Here's another scenario. I want to attack Sentry Drone. So I will engage Heracles Senior Council and declare Sentry Drone as the target. As you can see, Sentry Drone has a move skill. My opponent can pick 2 million to move Sentry Drone anywhere on this network. To avoid an attack, this card can move somewhere behind the corporation. This means the attack will be nullified. The divest phase is where profit is made. Players can sell any cards in their network that are disengaged for their valuation and receive that amount of money. To gain 2 million credits back, I can sell Corp Citizen. The card that was sold will be placed in the open market pile. During the end phase, the board resets in preparation for the next turn. Any damage dealt will be removed. Afterwards, the players have a window to play events to be able to save their orphaned cards. Let's say Corp Citizen is here. She is currently orphaned because she's not connected to a network. To be able to save her, I can play an event using war crimes to keep her in the network. In this end phase, we always check for orphaned cards. Any cards that were orphaned are automatically sent to the open market, which is why we need to play an event before the end process. A player will lose the game if any player in the game has no money. During the end phase, all trait pools will empty. Damage is removed during the end process. We will discard any illegally docked or orphaned cards, and also discard all non-permanent event cards. In this case, War Crimes is a non-permanent event. It will be discarded. When an opponent runs out of money, she loses the game at the beginning of any end phase. When my opponent's business is orphaned at the beginning of the end phase, I win the game. If my opponent cannot play an event to connect the business card to any of the network, she will lose the game. If I buy out my opponent's business by paying its valuation, I win the game. For a business to be bought, it has to be engaged. My opponent should pay the value of the business, which is always 10 million. I can defeat my opponent's business, thus winning the game, in combat by destroying it. If my opponent runs out of cards in the main deck and is unable to draw a card, I win the game.